Dawgs Podcast with your hosts, Blake Riniker, Justin Charles, John Nye, and Josh All.
What's up, Browns fans? Welcome back to a special edition of the Dawgs Podcast presented by Omaha Steaks. If you want to get your intros on the show, head to thedawgspodcast.com, tap leave voicemail on the drop-down menu. We have a very special guest today. Rich Dotson from the Dynasty Nerds podcast is going to be joining us. Before we get to him, though, I want to remind you to check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Make sure you tap the notification bell so you never miss a new episode. You can also find us on Apple, Spotify, and Google, pretty much anywhere where you listen to podcasts, if you prefer to just listen and not just watch. Lastly, if you're looking for more Dawgs content, head to jointhedawgs.com, become an official Dog Pack member. We got fantasy leagues filling up quickly. We need 7 more people as of this recording.
The day this comes out is actually the deadline. So if you haven't signed up yet, get in there, because this episode, this talk with Rich it's all about fantasy football. So get in now, because drafts are coming soon.
Yep, we're going to have to start doing the draft soon. Right now, we're trying to get to 4 12-team leagues, so we need 7 more people to get to that. So if you're not in yet and you're listening to this and you want to play fantasy football with us, make sure you hop in that Dog Pack and join. You get access to the After Hours episode, access to the private Discord, plus you just get to hang out with us and a bunch of other Browns fans from all over the world. So if that's what you're into, you want to hang out with us more, you want to play some fantasy football, jointhedawgs.com, become an official Dog Pack member.
And real quick, before we dive into our talk with Rich Dotson, we have an unbeatable NFL preseason offer for all of you Browns fans in Ohio from Caesars Sportsbook. New customers get their first bet insured up to $1,250 by using our code DAWGSFULL, all one word, when you sign up. Not only is your first bet completely insured, but you will also be directly supporting our podcast. And we appreciate that. So if you haven't already joined the Caesars Sportsbook community, now is the perfect time to make your move. Football is right around the corner. Real football. Just remember to enter our code DAWGSFULL during sign up and place that first bet. This offer is only available for new customers who are 21 years and older and physically present in Ohio. Please gamble responsibly. If you or a loved one has a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Check the episode description for the full terms.
All right, so like I mentioned in the open, we had a special guest today here on the Dawgs Podcast. We are very excited to welcome Rich Dotson from the Dynasty Nerds podcast to the show. Rich, it's awesome taking time out of your day to be here with us.
No, guys, it's absolutely a pleasure to be here. I'm really excited you guys are having me on. Anytime I have an opportunity to talk Cleveland Browns football, I won't resist. It doesn't matter. Anytime, anywhere, I'm always open to talk Browns.
So before we get started, you can find the Dynasty Nerds on Twitter. You can find them on YouTube. Anywhere else people should be looking for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, just on Twitter, on YouTube, anywhere you find our Dynasty Nerds podcast, anywhere you can find a podcast. You know, we feel very good about that. So, yeah, I mean, we're out there. You look up Dynasty Nerds and you'll find us all over. We do a podcast every week. It's not Brown-centric, but I make sure I do a plug. When Baker is our quarterback, I think I plug Baker every single week on the podcast.
You definitely did.
My love for him.
I will say, I'll vouch real quick. I've been listening to your podcast for a couple of years now, actually, and every time you mention the Browns, I'm like, I should reach out to them and see if he wants to come on the show and talk some Browns football. Your show, it's super fun. It's funny. You guys are hilarious. I'm actually in the nerd herd, too, so...
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, it's
a
the
cool
best
time.
spot to go if you want to play Dynasty Fantasy Football.
Yep.
So obviously you're big into Dynasty, and like you just said, huge Browns fan. So we kind of want to get your thoughts on some of the Browns players this year that you think guys should be looking at fantasy-wise. So obviously, where would you, a guy like Deshaun Watson, I know people have questions about him. Is he where would you put him as an option for your quarterback this year?
I look at him as one of the best values in fantasy football at the quarterback position this year, because he brings, not only does he bring the arm talent to get it done, and actually he has enough weapons around him. This is going to be the best cast that Deshaun Watson's ever had. You know, when you go back to where the last time he played, when you go all the way back to 2020 or 2021, whatever it was, I mean, he's throwing to guys, Brandon Cooks, Will Fuller, not a lot of really great options out there. Brandon Cooks, a very talented receiver. Don't get me wrong, but he's no Amari Cooper. Will Fuller's a go-route guy, but he's no Elijah Moore. They don't have a David Njoku, and he led NFL in passing yards that year. But when it comes to fantasy football, it's not just about throwing the football. If you can find a quarterback that can actually rush the ball as well, then that's where the real juice comes in. Those are the guys, like even the Daniel Jones out there of the worlds, they're going to come a top 8 fantasy football quarterback. And Deshaun Watson, with that offensive line, with Nick Chubb and the weapons at his disposal, has a chance to finish as a top 3 overall fantasy football quarterback. We're talking last year, even knocking a rust off, he averaged 29.2 yards per game rushing. last year. So he brings that mobility to the game, his athleticism, and that's fantasy football gold. For me, Deshaun Watson and all my best ball drafts and whatnot has been the number one quarterback that I've been targeting, and not just out of being a homer, but strictly because I do believe he could go back and be one of those top end fantasy football quarterbacks. Because even with Daniel Jones, who's a fantastic rusher, he had 700 yards rushing last year. That is something that Deshaun Watson is capable of doing. Do I think he will get 700 yards? Probably not. But anytime you get over 400 and you get close to that 500 yard mark, now you become an even higher top end fantasy football quarterback.
What I don't know if you know this off the top of your head. Where are you seeing him go in a lot of drafts? What round?
It really varies. So I haven't done any redraft, like regular fantasy drafts so far this year. I've just been doing like best ball drafts. All my regular drafts are coming up here in the next couple of weeks. But he's going right around like the 7th quarterback off the board. It's kind of hard not to you don't realize. Most people don't realize his rushing ability, and people are really starting to come along and seeing the weapons the Browns do have, and it's getting a little bit more clear about what Deshaun Watson used to be able to do. He's had some good practices. I know some of the media is saying that he's looked rough, but he's had some really nice balls in practice so far, and even against Philly, that make me feel pretty good about him coming back to the old Deshaun Watson. You're talking about a quarterback that has succeeded at every level he's ever played, from high school to college. If you go back to Clemson, like he dominated at Clemson. Like he really took him to the next level. He almost beat Alabama, and then he beat Alabama. That's how good he was. And then go to Houston with such a bad football team and such a bad organization. He wasn't able to get the wins, but he was able to get the stats. So you're talking about a premier quarterback here. And if you go back if I speak at a dynasty point of view, if you go back before he actually sat out, he was probably one of the top 5 fantasy football quarterbacks you were selected to be your quarterback for the long term.
That's awesome. That's what I like to hear. I'm going to try to steal him in all my drafts. No, I'm just checking. Anything from you guys?
On the Deshaun Watson thing real quick, I agree with you on the best ball. I've done a lot of best ball drafts too, and Deshaun Watson's like my highest exposure quarterback because he goes so late, and I know he can finish a lot higher than where they have him.
So for people who are new to fantasy football or maybe haven't played it, what's a best ball?
So best ball is where you draft once, you draft your team one time, and then the system just puts the highest scoring players in each position to fill out your roster throughout the whole year. You don't set lineups, you don't do waiver wires, trades, nothing.
Really?
Yep.
That's intriguing. I don't know.
Oh, it's a ton of fun, best ball. It's really growing in this market. We have a really good relationship right now. If any of your listeners are listening, we have a partnership with Underdog. It's the number one best ball site out there. You go out there and download the app, and if you actually use our promo code NERDS, they're going to match your deposit up to $100. And on top of that, we're going to give you a free year membership to Dynasty Nerds. So, like, if you're interested in Dynasty Fantasy Football and you want to check it out, not only can you go out there and draft some best ball teams, have a really good time drafting football teams, see how it pans out, and win some money, but you can also get a free year subscription to Dynasty Nerds and kind of check out what we have to offer as well and see if that's a game that you want to play.
Awesome. So make sure you guys check that out if you're looking to play some fantasy football. Try out maybe something a little bit new. I've never done a best ball, so I'm going to have to check it out. I think a Browns player that in years past is maybe gone not as high as what his talent is because he's splitting so many carries with Kareem Hunt. It's almost looking like this year Nick Chubb might be more of a premier back. What do you kind of see in terms for Nick Chubb this year fantasy-wise?
So Nick Chubb has been a premier back literally since he stepped foot in the field. I know, we go back to those, we had the 3 carries for like 100 yards and 2 touchdowns back then. But since then, he has gone relatively, second, third round in fantasy football drafts. Last year, he finished as running back 6 overall in fantasy football PPR leagues and 13, or was it 6 and 13. But this year, Nick Chubb is in line to potentially be the number 1 overall fantasy football running back. That's how talented he is, one of the best pure runners in the game. And he's somebody who's averaged over 16 points per game in PPR. Like I said, in 2022, he was averaging 16.6. In 2021, where he was running back 13, he averaged 15.4. And that was with Kareem Hunt there. They were literally taking him out for an entire series or taking him on third down. Wasn't really involved in a passing game, but we've been able to see him do it. He's been averaging under 3 catches per game his entire career, except for the 1 year that Todd Monken was here as our offensive coordinator. He was averaging 3.1 catches per game. And That's not a great average, but it's a nice average. And if you look at Nick Chubb's points per game basis last year in fantasy football, if you can give him if he just does exactly what he does last year, but you give him a slight uptick in a passing game, say 2 to 3 more points, that is enough to propel him to be the number 1 overall fantasy football running back in all the NFL. He's one of we talked about Deshaun Watson as great value. Nick Chubb is tremendous value because honestly, nobody's taking him over Austin Eckler, Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, or even probably Bijan Robinson, a rookie. But that's like right after that is where Nick Chubb can go, because the only question is, how involved will he be in a passing game? For me personally, I think he's going to be pretty involved, because let's look at the facts. There's not a lot of other options out there right now. Jerome Ford's not even practicing. Demetric Felton is capable, but we saw Nick Chubb last year come out and he was used he put up the best numbers he ever had. He had career highs in carries, 302. His rushing yards, 1525, career highs. Yards from scrimmage, 1764, career highs. Touchdowns, 13, career highs. Where we've all been in Cleveland kind of like, oh, we need to use Chubb more. We need to use him more. And they've been kind of like sitting back on him. This is it. He's 28. There's no more sitting back on Nick Chubb. You take you shake that Coke bottle, you take that lid off, and you just watch it and have a good time, because it's going to explode. And that's where Nick Chubb is this year. And he's that good. And in best ball drafts right now, you're seeing him go top 8 overall, which is pretty high praise and a lot of confidence, and it should be. With that offensive line, with those weapons around him, Nick Chubb is probably, honestly, one of the most safe running backs you can get, because he's barely ever injured, takes really good care of his body. He's a fantastic runner, some of the best feet out there, so he doesn't take those pound-in hits. So Nick Chubb, the safest to be potentially number 1 overall fantasy football running back.
That's what I like to hear.
That's awesome.
I love all that. I wanted to ask you, man, so going into this year, Elijah Moore, I don't think was really like a hot ticket. Just seeing what the Browns are doing as far as like how they're utilizing him, as far as just through training camp and just a little bit of game, where are you taking Elijah Moore? And then we talked last week about Amari Cooper. Is there any world where you could see Elijah Moore outpointing Amari Cooper this year?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
I'm Elijah Moore truther. If you listen to my podcast, I'm an Elijah Moore truther, and that goes back to when he was coming out in 2021, when he was coming out of Ole Miss. I absolutely love Elijah Moore, and I was actually in the Dominican Republic on spring break when we traded for him. I had a couple drinks. When we made that trade, to say that I was excited was an understatement. I was going around this resort, high-fiving people that didn't even speak English, excited about how excited I was that we got Elijah Moore. When you talk about Moore, and he had a really good stretch there at the back half of his rookie year with the Jets, but you're talking a player that not only has speed, he's an excellent route runner, and he has some of the best hands. I mean, if you go back and watch some of his Ole Miss tape, his quarterback was just okay. He was catching balls all over, catching balls on the ground. I mean, kind of think of like Vlad Guerrero, where he could hit anything. That was like Elijah Moore for his size. He was bigger than his wingspan, could catch everything. Fast, electric, great hands. So we've already seen how dynamic he could be, for how the Browns have been using him in practice and these scrimmages. Pull him out of the backfield, have him run out of the backfield, move it out left, out of the slot, outside. Like, he's that capable of a wide receiver. I absolutely love the move. And having a guy, Elijah Mitchell, paired up with a guy like Amari Cooper, who's going to demand your number 1 quarterback because of how good of a route runner is, that's where I see the path for Elijah Moore to surpass Amari Cooper when it comes to total statistics. Now, is it likely? Maybe not, because Amari Cooper is so talented, literally one of the best route runners in the NFL today. But Elijah Moore, without a doubt, is very capable of doing it. And the Browns they gave up a 2nd-round pick. I know they moved back to the 3rd, too, and they was able to give him Cedric Tillman, another receiver I like a lot. But, that's still a high price, because the Jets were somewhat happy because they took him in the 2nd round. We don't see a lot of trades like that go around the NFL today where people are giving up 2nd-round picks. We see it all the time, like, oh, wow, 4th-round pick for that guy? That's insane. That's how much these guys value the years on those rookie contracts. So Elijah Moore, to me, is a very good fantasy football option. I think the Browns are full of fantasy football options, obviously, because every guy you ask me right now, I'm like, yeah, draft that guy too. But, we know the Browns are going to throw the football a ton more this year than they have in the past. We're going to see a completely different offense. we're going to see a Cleveland Browns offense that we've never seen in our entire lives. So I'm very excited for a guy like Elijah Moore who's locked in as a number 2 weapon in here. The rapport that him and Deshaun Watson have already developed so far this offseason has already looked terrific. Just because he couldn't work with the Jets, that's fine, because nothing worked with the Jets. Not even last year. For the last 30 years, nothing's worked for the Jets. So for me, this is a great pickup and a great asset, and I'm very excited for Browns, like the casual football fan, to find out how good Elijah Moore is in the NFL.
Absolutely.
I've been stashing Donovan Peoples-Jones on my bench in my Dynasty League for a few years now. Is this the year that the touchdowns to start add up? Because he's put up some yards last year and a little bit the year before, but the touchdowns, he's got like 5 in his career or something like that. What is DPJ? Is he worth the stash? Does he keep filling up a roster spot on my bench, or is it time to cut ties?
Yeah, he's 100% worth the stash because he's not going to be a Cleveland Brown next year. So where's he going to go? He's come along pretty well. He's developed. We thought potentially he could get 1,000 yards last year. Touchdowns are hard to predict. On average, on targets, like if you're going to see 100 targets in a year, on average, you're going to score 3 to 4 touchdowns. That's the NFL average there. So could the touchdowns come? Of course. He's a third option. He's going to see the least amount of number 1 coverage out there. But he's a talented receiver. He's a big receiver. Really fits. Could be a possible number 2. Really fits really well. The Browns is number 3, potentially number 4 option behind David Njoku. But yeah, he's a great stash in Dynasty because he won't be in the Browns next year. And we always get surprised in free agency with teams of need that throw out these contracts. And Donovan Peoples-Jones could be one of those guys like, oh, wow, Donovan Peoples-Jones just signed a 4-year deal with the Carolina Panthers with $20 million guaranteed. He's making $10 million a year. That would not surprise me as well. So for Dynasty, he's a great stash. Are you going to be starting him this year? Probably not, unless you see an injury somewhere on the line of the receiving core, but a great stash.
This episode is sponsored by Omaha Steaks. Browns fans, Labor Day is right around the corner, and the experts at Omaha Steaks are inviting you to celebrate summer's last hurrah with 50% off site-wide during their Labor Day sale. Go to omahasteaks.com right now, enter code DAWGS, D-A-W-G-S, in the search bar to shop all of their exclusive Labor Day packages, like the Griller's Labor Day Feast. This package is the perfect sampling of everything that makes Omaha Steaks unforgettable. Plus, when you type code DAWGS in the search bar, you will get 8 free mouth-watering burgers and 8 free gourmet jumbo franks with your order. You're going to want to hurry because this exclusive offer is only available for a limited time. Celebrate those last remaining summer cookouts with 50% off site-wide during the Omaha Steaks Labor Day sale. Remember, the only way to get this amazing deal is to head over to omahasteaks.com, enter code DAWGS in the search bar, and get 8 free Omaha Steak burgers and 8 free gourmet jumbo franks with select packages, including that special Griller's Labor Day Feast. Omaha Steaks isn't just steak, it is the best damn steak of your life. That's omahasteaks.com, keyword DAWGS in the search bar. See website for details.
So you mentioned David Njoku then.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I think he's kind of poised for a breakout year. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he's coming off, he's coming off all career highs, just like Nick Chubb. Career high 44.9 yards per game, which was 8th amongst all tight ends in the NFL last year. And he caught 72.5% of his targets, which is a huge gain for Njoku, right? And we all know he drops the easy ones, catches the tough ones. But when David Njoku came out, first of all, he was super young. He was only 20 years old coming up in Miami, more of an athletic freak. We know that the tight end position develops more slowly than any other position pretty much in the NFL. And the fact that he's got better every single year has shown me that, hey, we have something here. And last year, when he was coming out, his route running was better. He was 12th in the league in yards per route run at 1.57. So he's put up career statistics last year for him. And if he could take another step forward this year, all that does is help not only the Cleveland Browns and David Njoku, but your fantasy football teams as well. Because when you play fantasy at tight end, after you get out of those top 4 guys, you're talking about a bunch of guys that are within like 1 point per game. And David Njoku is probably at the top half of that, right? Like tight end number 7 overall. But the difference between tight end 7 overall and tight end 4 overall, you're talking about like a point per game, right? It's not very much. Sometimes it'd be 0.5 points per game. That's how like narrow that margin is. But with his athleticism and his skill set, and now with more weapons around him, he's going to be a great red zone threat. He's going to be great in the seam, dominate the middle of the field. So I'm excited about David Njoku as well.
Nice. I have Donovan Peoples-Jones, Elijah Moore, and David Njoku on my Dynasty team.
Yeah, you do, and you just threw on John Kelly too.
Yeah, so I'm really excited for this new wide open passing attack of the Browns.
I was just going to see, does anybody have any more like fantasy specific questions before we kind of just talk Browns for a second?
I kind of got a fantasy and Browns.
Yeah.
Even though this doesn't actually pertain to me, I'm in 3 leagues, maybe 4. I don't know yet. It still doesn't pertain to me, but how do you think the Browns defense is going to be for fantasy?
Is there even still leagues with defenses?
I'm in one, actually.
Okay.
I'm in 1 out of my 20. Yeah, I think it's going to be very, very good. And I'm sure at some point you're going to ask me how the Browns are going to do this year. And to say I'm excited, the more I talk Browns, I don't even want to stand up. That's how excited I am about this defense. Absolutely. So where do you win in the NFL? When you look at the top 4 teams that were in their conference finals last year, they all ranked in the top of the league on the line, the defensive line. So where you win in the NFL is at the line of scrimmage, the defensive line and offensive line. How many times did we see big runs on the Cleveland Browns because the middle of the defensive line was just dead? Jadeveon Clowney was just okay. The fact that they bring in a guy like Zadarius Smith is unbelievable by Andrew Berry. That you could argue I would argue that the Browns have the 2 best defensive end combo in the NFL. Zadarius Smith is probably in line. Not only does he want a contract to put up career-high sack numbers in here. The fact they get Okunakwo as well, who has a ton of energy, to kind of mix in there, and then to put those 3 defensive ends on the field at the same time. They intermix them with Dalvin Tomlinson and Shelby Harris, who are both high-quality run-stopping defensive tackles. The Browns have one of the best defensive lines in the NFL. When you have one of the best defensive lines in the NFL, it makes everything easier on the defense. But the Browns already have a very good secondary. Bringing Juan Thornhill in from Kansas City. Grant Telpett showed us last year that he took a big step forward. And then the 3 corners that we have, and Greg Newsome, Martin Emerson, and Denzel Ward, that's going to be a very, very tough defense for them to play. I think from a fantasy football aspect, I think they'll do very, very well, even though they are in the AFC, and the AFC's primed to put up big, points everywhere, but that's everybody's facing the same thing. I think Myles Garrett, I put money on the day we signed Zadarius Smith. I put money on Myles Garrett as the NFL sack leader. I put Myles Garrett as the NFL Defensive Player of the Year because that felt like really good odds to me in money. Because to me, it doesn't get better than Myles Garrett when it comes to defensive end. And already in this early on, he's been dominated. And here at Cleveland, we're like, well, he's dominating Jed Wills. He's just average. Well, he went to Philadelphia and dominated there as well too, and they have one of the best offensive lines in all the NFL. So I think that the addition of Zadarius Smith is going to have the Cleveland Browns fan base begging Andrew Berry to find a way to sign him to another contract after this year. So I'm very excited about this defense, and it's the reason why I think the Browns have the potential to be 2024 Super Bowl champions.
Woo! Hey, woo! Shoot your shot, bro.
I think almost any other offseason in Browns history, or at least in my life, the signing of like a Dalvin Tomlinson, that would have been the Browns' big free agent signing of the year. Like that's where it would end. And then since him, it's been Juan Thornhill, Zadarius Smith, Shelby Harris. Like we just keep signing guys, and it's like, holy, who are we? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like the amount of talent we've added to this team, especially on the defensive side of the ball, is insane. And I'm right with you with Myles Garrett. I think I said a couple episodes ago, if he stays healthy this year, I think like the sack record is within reach for him this year. I see him going 20 plus potentially.
That'd be amazing. I would like that. Yeah, I mean, and we have a good secondary in today's NFL. You got to throw the football a ton, and I personally think AJ Green is, if you had to argue, one of the best 4th cornerbacks you could probably get in the NFL. I mean, I think he really holds his own every time he's got his number called for. So love the Browns defense. Love getting Schwartz there, Jim Schwartz there as well. He's a proven track record defensive coach. The way he moves his defensive line, the way he really utilizes that to dominate defenses, I'm very excited to see them play this year.
I think the Browns offense is one of the things that's going to help the Browns defense a ton, especially even in terms in fantasy. I think we're going to be playing with the lead a lot. So teams are going to be forced to throw, raises your chances to get sacks, forces quarterbacks into bad decisions late, so it increases your chances for takeaways. I think the offense is going to help the Browns defense a ton this year. So, John, anything else? Josh?
Yeah, you got any? I don't want to put you on the spot. Any ideas for most improved Browns defensive player?
Most improved. I would say there's a couple options here, right? Like you could say I would hope it would be for me, for my personal, like just that I don't think this, but like Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah would be something I really would hope would be the most improved. I think Denzel Ward could get a little bit better this year. But I would say if I had to pick one, like put your money on who becomes a bigger name this year, I'll put on Martin Emerson. He really showed us last year that he's a big, strong, physical cornerback and come in here and play with the best of them. Puts the Browns in a really good position with their defensive backfield to, money-wise, by the time Denzel Ward's contracts run out, to have two other quarterbacks that are a little bit younger there if they want to go that route. So I think from a most improved standpoint, I think on a name base-wise, I think it'll be Martin Emerson Jr.
Yeah, I mean, the way he locked down Mike Evans in that Buccaneers game last year was just impressive for a rookie.
It was awesome.
All right, well, we'll kind of wrap this up. We don't want to keep you too long. Justin, did you have one last thing you want to talk about? Yeah, I know you wanted to ask about that.
I don't know if
expo.
you want to hit a fantasy question real quick, just for fun, man. So I've been buying up tons of stock of Calvin Ridley as much as I can.
Yeah.
So just tell me, am I a fool? Or do we think that I could see him being easily a top 25 receiver, and especially if Trevor Lawrence continues to develop and get better. I mean, I thought Christian Kirk looked good out there, and he was a slot guy that they basically put at the one. So just talk to me. I love Calvin Ridley. I've been getting as much as I can. So
yeah, Christian Kirk finished as wide receiver 1 last year. So absolutely, Calvin Ridley, one of the most dynamic route runners in the league. Not coming off injury, just coming off a suspension. That Jaguars offense took a big step forward last year. Trevor Lawrence, the second half of the year, really started to dominate there. They came in and played really, really well, taking the Jags to the playoffs. Calvin Ridley, really good hands. A little bit older now, like 20-year age, but before he had that break in Atlanta, he was one of the premier up-and-coming receivers in the NFL. Like premier, his route running, his hands, he's electric. So him paired up with Trevor Lawrence and to have a guy like Zay Jones and Christian Kirk to kind of take away from you, and you got Evan Ingram at tight end and two really good running backs. So they drafted Tank Bigsby and Travis Etienne. I think Calvin Ridley, you said top 25. I would say if he's healthy, that's lock. Lock that in. That's almost a guaranteed. Yeah. The real question is, does he have the ability to finish as a wide receiver 1? And it's hard because there's only 12 of them, right? So, who do you take out to put Calvin Ridley in? That's always the toughest question. People are like, this guy's a fantasy wide receiver 1. Like, okay, well, who is he replacing? Because there's, you got Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, Garrett Wilson, A.J. Brown. There's a lot of good receivers out there in the NFL. So Calvin Ridley has the talent to do so. It's will he do it? But even if he doesn't, to me, he's safe. He's almost locked in top 18 safe for me because I think will be the number 1 receiver in Jacksonville. And you're right, because Christian Kirk kind of balled out there. And honestly, Zay Jones balled out there too. Another player I kind of liked as well. So, it really comes down to touchdowns, and Trevor Lawrence is good enough to take him to another level. He'll be the best. Even when he was playing with Matt Ryan wasn't on the level that Trevor Lawrence probably will be on this year. So, I think he's been pretty solid.
Thanks, brother.
Awesome. Well, hey, man, we don't want to take up too much of your Wednesday evening. We appreciate you jumping on here, coming on after, was it your son's football game?
Yeah, I was still at a football game, but that went well. And again, you're not taking my time. We're talking Browns football. I'm having a good time. I feel no way that I'm wasting my time here. Well, I'm excited. I'm excited because the season's right around the corner.
Yeah. Yes.
And I'm excited. To be fair, I'm excited every year, right? Every year I'm excited. I'm the kind of guy you're hey, how are the Browns going to win and how are they going to go far? I have a path, man. I have a path every single year. But I told my sons, it's funny, you mentioned this football game. I just wait to the game. Before that, we were talking in the car. I was like, guys, we're just a couple of weeks away from the Cincinnati game. And I was like, this will probably be the best team that I've ever seen. And my one son was like, you said that 2 years ago, going into it when we first got Jadeveon with Baker, because I did believe in Baker a ton. I was like, yeah, I know. But before I was hoping Baker would take a step, I'm confident in Deshaun Watson taking a step. And with this defense, I was like, this would be the best defense that you boys have ever seen.
Yes.
It could be the best defense I've ever seen. And like I told you earlier, that defensive line is how you win championships. And when you talk about the Browns and you want to mention the word championship, and anybody outside of Cleveland might laugh, they can laugh themselves all the way to their losses. That's fine with me. But when you look at the AFC and you look at the Super Bowl, where does it start? Can you beat the Kansas City Chiefs? And then it goes, can you beat the Bengals? Can you beat the Bills? And there's a lot of Chargers. We mentioned the Jaguars. The Browns are in position to do all of that. Now, I'm not going to be some homers here, but the Browns are winning the Super Bowl. I will tell you this, matter-of-factly. This Cleveland Browns team, if it can stay healthy, just like any other NFL team, has the personnel to 100% win the Super Bowl this year. And that, for me, gets me extremely excited to go watch this team. I can't wait to see them come out and play Cincinnati. We have a really good track record versus so far. It's at home, right? The place is going to be absolutely electric this year. They have a home opener, which we never have. Like, literally since 1999, we've had, 2 home openers. So for me, the place is going to be absolutely electric. Joe Burrow hasn't been able to practice now and going on almost pretty much a month. The Browns are going to be in a really good position to start the week off hot. And listen, some people are like, oh, you're playing the division opponents early. Yeah, that's great. Mm-hmm. Those are when you want to play those kind of teams. Right. We just saw Marlon Humphrey go down for a month for the Baltimore Ravens.
Saw that.
That's terrific. But the NFL, with the way now they have these training camps and practices, a lot of these teams are rusty because they don't just practice like they used to. So when you're coming out, a little rusty, the playing field's way more even on early. So for us to get out early and attack these division opponents, if we can gobble up those wins early, we're going to be great position to win our division. Our schedule only gets easier on the second half of the year, and the Browns can stay healthy. They have a chance to have the number 1 seed in the AFC this year to kind of carry them through that playoff year. I'm extremely excited. And if I had to pick one team to win the Super Bowl outside the Chiefs, I'm picking my own Cleveland Browns.
I love it, man. I love all of it, man. I love all of it.
Passed out because all the blood rushed out of my head.
Nobody's standing up from this table. All right.
Well, hey, I don't think I can't think of a higher note to end an episode on than potential Browns
Super Bowl
winning
parade.
the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to wrap it up here. Once again, we appreciate you taking time being here with us. We're definitely going to have you back on again. This was awesome. Again, if you want to check out the Dynasty Nerds, you can find them on Twitter, YouTube, pretty much anywhere you can find a podcast. Check them out. Awesome show. Again, thank you for being here.
Absolutely, guys. Anytime you want to talk Browns, I'm always available.
Awesome, man. We appreciate it. You have a good night.
Thanks, guys.
Once again, we want to thank Rich from the Dynasty Nerds podcast for joining us. That was awesome. Got a ton of good insight on Browns fantasy, what he thinks of the Browns team. I mean, he said the SB word.
He sure did a couple times.
Yeah, it got me all excited. So it was awesome having him on here. Again, if you haven't checked out the Dynasty Nerds podcast, make sure you do so. It's an awesome show. You get a ton of good information in terms of fantasy football, and we know a lot of you guys are playing fantasy football out there. So again, thank you, Rich, for joining us. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Dawgs Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Twitter at the Dawgs Podcast. Get your thoughts on the show at thedawgspodcast.com.